He pulled a gun on me, over a parking spot. 1 second I'm sipping coffee. The next I've got a pistol aimed at my chest by some wannabe HOA cop having a meltdown. What he didn't know. I train Navy SEALs for a living. And in that moment he picked the wrong guy. Let me tell you how it all went down. He had a gun pointed at my chest, finger near the trigger, yelling like I just robbed a bank. But all I did was park my truck in the wrong spot. It was just another quiet morning. I had my coffee, stepped outside and was about to head to the gym. Nothing out of the ordinary, until I saw him pacing near my driveway. Black boots, sunglasses, radio clipped to his belt, and a cheap-looking badge swinging from his chest. "Hey, you can't park here," he barked. I paused, confused. "I'm in my own driveway." He stepped closer, puffing out his chest. "Your rear tire is over the sidewalk. That's a violation." Now, I've dealt with difficult people before. You don't work with elite soldiers for years without running into a few hotheads. But this guy? He had the energy of someone trying way too hard to feel powerful. I tried to stay calm. "Look man, I'll move it back a few inches." But he wasn't having it. Too late. I've already written it up. Then he reached for something behind his waist. At first, I thought he was going to radio someone. But instead, his hand came back holding a pistol. Just like that, things got real. He pointed it straight at me. No warning. No hesitation. People like to imagine what they do in moments like that, when adrenaline kicks in and your brain goes into overdrive. Most freeze. Some panic. Me. I've trained hundreds of soldiers for moments exactly like this. But he didn't know that yet. He thought I was just some regular guy with a slightly crooked truck. He had no clue who he was dealing with. And in that moment he made the biggest mistake of his life. I moved into this neighborhood because it was quiet. Peaceful. The kind of place where people wave when they mow their lawns and leave each other alone. That's all I ever wanted. No trouble, no noise, just my space. Most of the neighbors are cool. Friendly enough but not too nosy. I like it that way. Then the HOA decided to hire a security officer. Not a cop. Not even close. Just a guy with a shiny badge, a flashlight, and way too much free time. Everyone called him Rick, but nobody really liked him. He took his job way too seriously. He measured grass height. Checked mailbox paint. Wrote people up for having dusty cars. The first time I crossed paths with him, it was minor. He left a note on my door about a non-compliant trash bin. I laughed it off. Figured he was just doing what he was told. But then it started happening more often. One week it was my garden hose. Next week it was excessive tire wear on my parked car. I started to feel like he was watching me. Like he had something to prove. Still I stayed calm. I've been through worse situations in my life. Ones where real lives were on the line. This guy? He was just annoying. Until that morning. I had backed up my truck late at night after work. The back tires were just barely over the sidewalk. I noticed it but figured I'd fix it in the morning. That was all it took for Rick to blow a fuse. And the thing is, he didn't knock like a normal person. He banged on my door like it was a raid. By the time I opened it, he was already yelling. And I could see it in his eyes, he wasn't going to back down. I stepped outside and Rick was already in full meltdown mode. "You think you're special? Rules apply to everyone," he shouted, finger jabbing the air like he was directing traffic in a war zone. His voice echoed down the street, loud enough to draw a few curtains open. I stayed calm. "It's just a tire over the sidewalk. I'll move it now." "No. Too late. This is a serious violation." His hand hovered near his hip. I noticed the holster. Not standard issue. More like something he bought online to feel important. "You're really escalating this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. That's when he pulled it. The pistol came out fast, shaky hands, eyes wide with adrenaline. I didn't move. My heart didn't even race. This wasn't the first time I'd stared down a barrel. He held it one-handed, finger way too close to the trigger. No stance, no control. His arm trembled like he was trying to lift something too heavy. I looked him dead in the eye. "You really want to do this?" He didn't answer. Just kept shouting nonsense. His voice was cracking. His face was red. Sweat beading on his forehead. He wasn't in control. Not of the situation. Not even of himself. Inside, I was already breaking it down. His posture, his weapon grip, his field of vision. All the things I train guys to read in less than a second. I could disarm him right there. End it before it started. But I didn't move. I wanted him to realize it on his own. Because the moment I moved, everything would change. And Rick, he still had no clue who he was trying to intimidate. Rick kept the gun pointed at me like he was in some action movie. His hands were shaking more now, and his breathing was getting louder, short, angry gasps like he was trying to psych himself up. I could tell he had no idea what he was doing. "You need to put that down," I said, calm but firm. "This isn't going to end well for you." He didn't flinch, but I saw the doubt flash across his face. Just for a second. Like his brain realized he'd gone too far, but his pride wouldn't let him back out. Then he tried to reassert control. "Don't test me. I'm authorized to protect this neighborhood." I actually had to stop myself from laughing. That's when I took a small step forward, not fast, not threatening. Just enough to let him know I wasn't scared. And I wasn't. I've stood face to face with armed men in combat zones. I've trained Navy SEALs, Marines, Special Ops units. This was just a man with an inflated ego and a dangerous toy. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I teach people how to handle situations just like this. Real people. Real threats. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in the room where I work." He blinked. His grip loosened just a little. That was all I needed to see. I didn't make a move. I didn't need to. The mental shift had already started. You could see it in his face. He realized he was standing in front of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. He was out of his depth and now he knew it. But he still hadn't lowered the gun. Not yet. His pride was still fighting to stay in control. Then came the voice from across the street. "Rick, what the hell are you doing?" It was my neighbor Tom. Retired Army, sharp as ever, always watching from his porch in the mornings. He was already halfway across his lawn, phone in one hand, the other waving. Rick didn't respond. He just stood there, frozen, gun still halfway up, like his brain was lagging behind everything happening. Tom kept walking. "Put it down, man. You've already gone too far." That was when Rick's arm finally dropped. Slowly. Like he didn't want to admit defeat, but his body had made the decision for him. The pistol hung at his side, still in his hand, but the threat was gone. I stayed still. Watching. Waiting. Tom stepped between us and looked at me. "You good?" "Yeah," I said, never taking my eyes off Rick. He just got a little excited. Tom turned to him. "Do you have any idea who this guy is?" "He trains Navy SEALs. He teaches hand-to-hand combat for a living. You're lucky he didn't break your wrist the second you pulled that thing." Rick looked at me, his mouth slightly open like he was hearing all this in slow motion. You could see it sinking in. He thought I was just another guy in a quiet neighborhood. Now he wasn't so sure. More neighbors were outside now. Watching. Whispering. Someone was filming. Rick looked around, realizing just how bad this was. He holstered the gun and muttered something under his breath. Then he turned and walked off. No apology. No explanation. Just the long, awkward walk of someone who finally understood he picked the wrong guy to mess with. Word spread fast. By the next morning, half the neighborhood knew what had happened. People I'd never even spoken to started waving, nodding, giving me that look like asterisk. "Yeah, we heard." Asterisk. A few came by, pretending to ask about something random, trash pickup, mail delivery times, but I could see it in their eyes. They wanted to ask about Rick. They wanted the story. I didn't give them much. Just smiled and said, "Everything's fine now." Rick. He disappeared for a few days. No patrols. No clipboard. No shouting. Just silence. Then one morning a notice went out, "HOA security services will be under review." Nobody had to ask why. I never wanted to be the center of attention. I moved here to get away from all that. The chaos. The pressure. The noise. But sometimes the trouble finds you anyway. What stuck with me wasn't the gun. Or the shouting. Or even the way he tried to act like he had all the power. It was how quick people are to assume. He saw a guy in gym shorts parking over a line. That's it. He didn't ask. He didn't pause. He just went full control mode, thinking that made him strong. But strength isn't about volume. It's not about waving a weapon or wearing a fake badge. Real strength is control. Discipline. Knowing when not to act. I stood still because I didn't need to prove anything. Not to him. Not to anyone. Rick learned something that day, probably the hard way. You never know who you're dealing with. Not by the car they drive. Not by the clothes they wear. And definitely not by where their tire lands on the sidewalk.